Hi, this is Polybanteaches. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Hope you like this video. Hi, this is Polybanteaches and I am Sagorika Banerjee. Once again, I am back to teach you another chapter of English language and literature syllabus of class 10th. The name of this lesson is Nelson Mandela, Long Walk to Freedom. This is lesson number 2 of the book First Flight. So before I tell you the storyline of this chapter, the short summary of this chapter, I would like to tell you about the author of this chapter. The author is the famous personality Nelson Mandela, who was the person who has written this book. This was the autobiography of his life, and in this story, this chapter is just a passage taken from the that autobiography. So Nelson Mandela was the great hero who fought for the freedom of the blacks in South Africa. He was born on 18th July 1918. About 30 years of his life he spent in various prisons of South Africa, and then then in the year 1994 he became the first black president of South Africa. As I told you that this lesson is a part of the autobiography of Nelson Mandela, titled as Long Walk to Freedom. So in this lesson, basically it is the author has depicted the saga of the glorious struggle of the black people who waged war against the apartheid regime who were ruling in the South Africa at that time. It was the struggle for freedom against the apartheid regime by the black people of South Africa. So Nelson Mandela was he was heading the entire black community in those days. Now, talking about the theme of the story, this story pays tribute to all those great black heroes or leaders who fought for freedom against the apartheid or the racist regime of South Africa. This story gives a nice description of the inaugural ceremony when Nelson Mandela was supposed to take the oath as the first black president of South Africa, and it shows how leaders or dignitaries from various nations, more than 140 countries of the world, they attended this function for the first time in the land of South Africa. Apart from that, in this lesson, through his speech, Nelson Mandela gives his message of peace and harmony and the importance of freedom to the entire nation. It also foresees a new regime which will be based on the principles of equality for both men and women in the country. In this regime, there will be no space for exploitation of man by man. There will also be no space or no room for the racialism or segregation of man in this new regime. Moving towards the short summary of the chapter, the entire story is divided into 8 points. Amongst them, the first one is the non-racial government, the first non-racial government in South Africa. So the lesson starts in this way. It was the date was 10th May 1994. It was a bright, clear day, and everybody in the land of South Africa was thrilled as the inauguration ceremony was going to be held. And for the first time in the history of South Africa, a black person was going to take the place of the head of the nation, and he was going to take the oath. That is, Nelson Mandela was going to take the oath of a president of South Africa. Now, the entire program was held in the amphitheater in the city, in the Union Building, at the Union Building in the city of Pretoria, and and delegates, dignitaries from various nations, that is about more than 140 countries, had attended the function, and it was the first time that so many people, dignitaries, renowned personalities from more than 140 countries of the world had come to the land of South Africa, and in this on this occasion, people were also excited because first time in the history of South Africa, a black person was going to take over the charge, and the non-racial government was now going to take the power. At first, Mr. D. Klerk was sworn in as the second deputy president. Then Mr. Thabo Mbeki was also sworn in as the first deputy president. And then the third one was Mr. Nelson Mandela, who was sworn in as the president of South Africa. Now, the second point in the summary is Mandela's speech. On this occasion, Nelson Mandela gives the speech, and in his speech, he first paid tribute to all the great leaders. He remembered those people who had fought against these apartheid, this racist, these white people who ruled for so many years on black people. He also mentioned that how those blacks were considered to be as outlaws, as rebels, and how they were ill-treated and kept in isolation if they raised their voices against these white people. And then for the first time, how in that land of South Africa would be breathing in the air of freedom, how people will enjoy their liberty because that non-racial government was going to rule, and now their motto was to give freedom to all, irrespective of their color or creed. He also said that his party would work for the people, and they would work hard to liberate the people, all people from poverty, deprivation and diseases. The third point in this is the impressive display of jets. So soon after the speech of Nelson Mandela, the entire amphitheater was thrilled with the spectacular display of jets flying in the sky, all in a very perfect pattern, following a perfect pattern, and it was basically a demonstration given by the military to the new democratic government of the country. Two different national anthems were also sung on this occasion. Now, the fourth point in the summary is the sense of history. So, after mentioning about the day, the author also is overwhelmed by the history of South Africa, and he expresses that how it was ruled by the white people, and he expresses that very beautifully in the story. The lesson also explains that how after the Anglo-Boer War, those apartheid were introduced in the land of South Africa. It was the time of racial discrimination. So the author explains, he says it was the time when the society was based on racial discrimination, and it was the period of most inhuman society that ever existed in the world. But now, since a new government had come, this will change the entire scenario. The new government would work for the equality of all men, irrespective of their color, caste and creed. The fifth point is the way how those apartheid worked. So here in this lesson it is mentioned that how those apartheid used to torture the black people. Those apartheid created long lasting deepest wounds, and because of the decades of torture and exploitation and oppression of the black people. Those exploitation and oppression of the black people by the apartheids led to the rise of some courageous, heroic people in the land of South Africa. And those people were the heroes. They were considered to be as heroes because they fought for the freedom of the black people. Tambos, Sizzlers and many others were the symbol of great courage and heroes in the land of South Africa. Now the sixth point is struggle of comrades. So this lesson also depicts how Nelson Mandela learned about the new meaning of courage. Now he came to know that courage meant the victory over fear. All those heroes, they had one mission and they worked for one great idea. The idea was the idea of freedom. Freedom for all. And even in the darkest prisons of South Africa, this idea never faded. They continued to maintain the idea, work for it and to fight for freedom. Now the seventh point of the story is twin responsibilities. Here Nelson Mandela describes about the twin responsibilities, the dual obligations of human beings. According to him, every person, every man has to perform two duties, two obligations. One is his duty towards his family, wife, and the other one is his duty towards the society, his community, and the entire nation. So during the time of struggle, it was impossible for the black people to maintain or to do both the types of duties. So if anybody had the courage to do it, he was brutally treated, he was considered to be an outlaw, and he was considered to be a rebellion. And then he was kept in, left for leading his life in isolation. So the last point of the lesson is how Nelson Mandela joined the African National Congress. So when he found that he could not do, he could not take the dual responsibilities, or he could not fulfill his duties because of certain restrictions for the black people, he wanted to raise his voice. And then he joined this African National Congress. The desire for the freedom of his people and their self-respect had transformed Nelson Mandela from a weak young man into a bold leader. So finally, a law-abiding lawyer was transformed into an outlaw. In the end, it is also mentioned that Nelson Mandela realized the actual meaning of freedom. He realized that freedom is indivisible. So that was all about the short summary of the chapter. Now I would like to give you the meanings of certain words, typical words used in the chapter. The first word is dignitaries. Dignitaries means people of high ranking. Amphitheater is the second word, which means an open ground where a lot of gathering can be held and people can watch any show without any roof. Outlaws is the third word, which means rebellious or bandits. Liberate means free. Apartheid means the policy of segregation based on race, color and creed. Defies means disobeys. Brutality means cruelty. Obligation means duty or responsibility. Transitory means changing, that which is temporary. Resilience means ability to recover. Oppressor means one who oppresses. Rainbow gatherings means gathering of different people having different colors. Last is prejudice. Prejudice means ill feeling. So that's all for today. I hope you have now understood the chapter clearly. If you like this video, please like, share and subscribe my channel, that is Polybanteaches. I promise that next time I will come with another important topic of English language and literature of class 10. Till then, bye-bye.